Hello everybody. I wanted to go over, come on, focus little camera. I wanted to go over hickory specifically. You're looking at a log or a billet that's been quartered, and mainly just talk handles a little bit, why hickory is king among or queen, the species, and it is a regional thing. I think anybody that knows me, that how far I've gone down this rabbit hole, obviously. I want to utilize these trees and make something that is going to be in somebody's tool shed for a long time, potentially, be able to be handed down to the next generation. So let's talk Runout in real terms, because we hear that term quite a bit, and I think some people don't understand it fully. They just know when a handle breaks that, oh, that was running. Now I had to throw this into vertical mode so that we could get a better picture. Here we have a piece of pignut hickory, and when you have the advantage of working from a log, you just have more information on wood, and usually you can tell what's inside by looking at the bark. And this is reasonably straight. It has a little bit of a curve there, so that's probably the way the grain is going to run, sort of at an angle. And there's all sorts of things that can happen, and you can have limbs that are inside that you can't see from the outside. So let's turn this guy around. And this is a beautiful tree. Fortunately, I have 20 feet of it, but if you can see the top, very small on the heartwood, which is really great. And we'll get into heartwood more and how it affects checking. But here you can really see this was split with metal wedges and sledges. There's a video, I think prior to this one, that's going to go through the task of really getting after it. It's not for the faint of heart, let me tell you that. And see if you remember that curve that I just showed you on the outside in the bark. It translates in here. But you can definitely see how stringy, and even now with this had dried out since yesterday. I split this yesterday. I mean, it's just stringy and tied together, and it just makes such a good handle. It's not a super part. So that's kind of a rundown on why hickory is so desirable. Now, when you have this, you can start to see how Runout is going to work. Now, we probably wouldn't be able to just lay our axe pattern on this side and get some sort of an axe out of it, although it would be nice. We can follow this up, and we can see our grain running this way. So if we have our axe pattern on this side of the, we're going to have pretty much totally flat grain or horizontal grain, and we kind of want vertical grain. So this side would be the pattern side. And we don't have straight lines for our, it doesn't go like this. It's in an arc. So let me throw some more lines on this, and let's check her out. Okay. Now my first cut is probably going to be to get rid of this heartwood. And it is my guess, scientifically I have nothing to back this up, but basically with your heartwood and your sapwood, these are two different densities of wood, even though they're in the same tree. This is harder, it's more wild, it has, it's just different. So this is going to have a different expansion and contraction rate than this. That's why a handle with heartwood and sapwood, there's nothing wrong with them. And really, when you're making a handle with heartwood and sapwood in it, or heartwood and sapwood, it's your best guess. There's no way to determine how well that joint basically is going to stay together. Now I could, if I wanted to do that, but since this tree is so small, if I wanted to make a cut here, but the problem is this guy here, and that's going to be problematic throughout the handle. That's why I'm going to make this cut first, and I'm just going to remove the heartwood. And this is really how you control your grain. And these are going to be for the premium hand-done handles. These are going to be air dried, which is another subject of how much moisture in your handle should you have, because hickory, or basically most all your hardwoods from a supplier that supplies for cabinet shops and carpenters and job sites and stuff, that wood is cooked differently than handle wood. It's cooked faster at higher temperatures, and that does not translate to good handle wood. But anyway, let's get back to the anatomy of the tree. Understanding the end grain is important as well. And even when you're going to select boards from somewhere, oftentimes you're going to have one end that's painted. Sometimes that's for identification, sometimes that's left over from the actual drying process. Usually it's for identification, I believe. But even with this, you're going to get a lot of false signals, because you have chainsaw marks in here that could possibly indicate that the grain was running like that, but obviously the grain is running again to the orientation of the bark. So you might want to, when you're going to select boards, if you can't see what the end grain is, you might want to take something to expose the end grain, so that you know what. Now I have some decisions to make. Once I remove the heartwood, this is pretty much what I have left over. Now this is a small tree, so unfortunately, if I want to do a curved handle, I'm going to have to, I'll square it, and I'll square it. In other words, that. And that'll leave me a blank big enough to get the curve in, and it's a lot of wood for one handle, but it's kind of the way it goes. But this falls right into Runout, and why there's really no way to avoid run out. And honestly, I think if a handle is at a sawmill, the wood has run out in it, regardless. Because if you're coming down, and say you take a saw and you're coming down, and then oops, you get to this curvy part in the wood, the saw is going to make a straight line, so it's going to cut right through this curve, and there's your run out. Again, this was the fro coming down, and this was some sort of anomaly in the wood, and the fro cut right through it. But when you have a split, more or less, you're staying with your grain. This would be an exaggeration of run out right here, if that helps. So there is a different mindset when cutting boards. Doesn't matter how you slice it, you're gonna have a lot of waste. From this part of the process, down to cutting it out on the bandsaw and thinning it down, and you know, there's all of that. So I think with a curved handle, really no matter how you lay it on the board, there's gonna, to some degree, there's gonna be some run out in the board. So you just have to accept it and learn how to avoid problematic wood, and come up with a board that it's gonna last and work and function as a tool. Okay, cool. You just have to go for it and make the mistakes and learn from them. This one is really good because we have a lot of meat to work with here. Now, an obvious, since we've got our grain running this way, we'll definitely be making that cut, or that cut. It just depends on where we're going to get our biggest. We could also make that, but to have the vertical grain or 45, it really, you just have to feel it out. Where I put the wedges were the main checks, and it was pretty much it was in a triangle. Sometimes it's like that, and other times it's quartered. And my reasoning was that's where the most stress in the billet was, and so that's where we split it. And then we're going to split all the sapwood out of it, and hopefully we end up with an extremely strong and stable piece of wood. Here, once we get these split out with wedges, and then to fine tune it, we use a fro. And then once we get it down, I start using the broad hatchet and flattening it, and then we'll put sealer on the ends, and we'll air dry it. But you can see, let's see, this is going to be, you see the grain running this way, so our pattern is going to be on either side. A piece of wood that was too dry from my supplier before I started air drying stuff, and that's what wood that's too dry looks like. And they generally snap at the heads because they can't take the shock wave. But I don't know if you can see the cells, the wood cells in there. They're just anyway. I hope that helps. These are going to be like the primos that are going to be coming out, hand done, probably cut out on the bandsaw. Well, they're going to be cut out on the bandsaw, believe me, because hand splitting, it's a lot of work. And then roughed on the 2x72, and then finished off with the arsenal of hand tools that y'all have seen in previous videos. But I hope that's a deeper dive. It's a deep dive on wood. And I'm going to be cutting some of this on the bandsaw into boards. I'll probably take some up to the sawmill and have that cut. But it's really been exciting. All of a sudden, access to hickory has really kind of blown the door open, and that's the direction we're going. This hickory, whether it's going to be air dried, well, it's all going to be air dried, but whether it's going to be cut into boards or billets, that's where we're at. That's what we're doing right now. So anyway, take care. Thank you to everybody. Thanks to all the new subscribers. Thanks to the True Blues. I couldn't do this without you. All my friends in the saw and axe community. I just wouldn't be the same without you guys. So everybody take care, and we'll see you on the next one.